Hi, everyone. Really excited to host our last session of the day, and thanks everyone for sticking around. I'm sure you're getting excited for some drinks right after this. The topic that we're covering now is leveraging loyalty in a cookieless era. And what I'd like to do is, before we get started, let's just go through a quick round of intro. So Georgia, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, no worries. So hi everyone, lovely to meet you. I'm Georgia. I'm the Partnership Director for Boots Media Group.
I'm Sam Knights. I'm the CEO for SMG.
Hi, I'm Brogan. I'm Head of Retail Media, Digital Content and Activations at Coty.
Hello, I'm Steph Taylor, Head of Omni Media and Partnerships at Boots.
And I'm Erin, and I am a principal at BCG working on our retail and tech practices. So kicking us off, Sam, there's been a recent explosion in the number of loyalty programs that retailers have developed. What, in your view, are the main drivers for that?
Okay, great question. So it's probably worth starting by saying loyalty programs are not new, right? They've been around forever. Nick will tell you that Clubcard has been around doing some really good stuff for a long time. Boots will say the Advantage Card has been around for tens of years. Co-op will say they started it in 1844 with their first store. Loyalty programs have been around for a long, long time, and they're there because they're there to drive loyalty for the customers. They're there to add value, to stop switching, and to make customer journeys easier. And so we can't lose sight of that. But what's changed, I think, in recent years is the value of that data. So because of the deprecation of the cookie, because brands like Gillette, who I used to work for, are now looking for ways of targeting their digital advertising more efficiently, and they can't use cookies anymore, they're looking for big pockets of data that show behavior, shopping behavior, browsing behavior, and ultimately purchase. And obviously now these loyalty card schemes have that data. And before we couldn't connect the two, but now thanks to a lot of development in technology and measurement, it's now able for us to utilize that first-party data in a very privacy-compliant way to actively offer customers personalized experiences that drive sales, and also understand the impact of that as well, which is a win for the retailer, because suddenly there's a whole new revenue stream, but also a new way of talking to their customers. It's a win for brands that can use that data because it drives return on investment if it's done in the right way. It's offering great experiences for them, for the retailer. But also the most important thing is it's right for the customer. And if you can do it in a way that is active and relevant, then that drives good results. So I'd say those are the big things. It's about the deprecation of the cookie mixed with the advancement of tech, and the ability to measure it has really grown the ability for retailers to use their loyalty card schemes.
Thanks. And so, speaking of those loyalty schemes, Steph,
Yes.
it'd be great to hear about what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen in terms of building out those loyalty programs and really making that Advantage Card sing.
Work hard for us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's about the kind of the infrastructure that you've got as a business, and I'm sure a lot of people have touched on this today, and making sure that the business is invested in that infrastructure internally and externally to make sure that we're processing that data in a responsible way, GDPR compliant, but more importantly that the customer feels value from giving us their information and their data. And following on from that, I think, as obviously we've touched upon, there are so many loyalty schemes that are out there. I think the main important thing is about how we continue to evolve that and listen to our customers. So in 2022, kind of post-Brexit, post-pandemic, Boots conducted quite extensive customer research to really understand what our customers wanted from us as a loyalty proposition. And, of course, points were still really important, but actually what we found, instant savings was something that people wanted. And so obviously we launched our Price Advantage campaign, which, worked incredibly well from us from a brand awareness point of view, from a longer term return on investment, but more importantly, it grew that base and it brought in new customers for us as well, which again was absolutely fantastic. And I think it's about as well not resting on those laurels. So in 2023, we went back, did the same type of research and broadened out that kind of instant savings offering through our Boots Best for Less campaign, integrating more ways to save through our Advantage Card, and again attracting new customers and seeing those same successes.
Great. And Sam, kind of related to that, how can these retailers maintain that competitive edge in that market? So lots of innovations that Steph spoke to, but kind of what are you seeing that competitors are doing, and how critical is the differentiation given the numerous loyalty programs that are popping up?
Yeah, it's another really interesting question. It again comes back to the customer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's about how can you offer value to those customers in that space. It'd be interesting, so how many in this room have got a loyalty card of some format? Put your hands up.
I have several.
Yeah. So the reach is huge, and you've got a choice of having all of these different, and how often do you swipe it? Well, that depends on the value that you get back. And what I think has been really interesting that we've seen recently is that the value is not just monetary, right? We've seen a lot of membership pricing, but that's an important factor, but it's not the only factor. So Boots, for example, have been offering more personalised offers through the ad card, which is real value to customers. Co-op have just opened up Co-op Live, right, which is the biggest arena in Europe now, and you're able to link your membership to going to special events there. And you think about kind of Amazon, right? Their loyalty card program includes the Premiership football, some tennis, free delivery. And so I think the way that retailers are starting to think about differentiating their proposition come loyalty is more than just pricing. It's about what can we offer customers that make them want to swipe, that make them want to build points, and make them want to come back to us as a retailer in this kind of ecosystem.
And so in coming back, I think there's kind of that retailer store element to it, and then there's also the brand element to it. So what are some of the innovative ways that, say, Boots have been able to leverage this data? And also for brands, Brogan, for you, how are you interacting with the retailers in shaping that proposition?
I'll go first, yeah. So from a Boots perspective, we've been using the data, the customer data for quite a while with the likes of email and app, and they work brilliantly. But the focus over the last couple of years has been on how we can extend that actually across multiple channels and really go into this sort of omni-channel world. So to do that, we actually launched something that we call Audience 360. So that is actually how we use Boots' customer data for both planning and measurement. At the very beginning, it was off-site, so the likes of the trade desk and the likes of Meta, Pinterest. And as we move through, actually, it's how do we connect all the different parts of the puzzle. So in-store, how we connect in out-of-home, how do we connect on-site. And actually, at that point, that is, I know a lot of people talk about omni-channel, but actually omni-channel is really quite difficult to achieve. So this is the way that we can do it. So where we use that actual audience-first planning and how we can allow that audience to make sure we're doing a really cohesive campaign across the full path to purchase. I think the one other thing from a Boots perspective is actually, I think a lot of people have spoken about this already, but the importance of the store. So a lot of our innovation is coming through store, but actually a lot of our very PRable things, I'm really hoping you've all seen the Boots Beauty store in Battersea. And actually, how do we use the customer data to drive people into those stores and those initiatives? So that is a store we've got with brand new digital screens, trying lots of different formats, but we're also using that customer data to really identify what event is going on in that store, how we can target those people to drive them into that store for that event. And again, it's that value exchange, so they get to meet the likes of Frankie from the Saturdays, or Chris Appleton was there last week. So, we get lots of, the data can actually help to drive that as well. And then from you?
Yeah, so I guess overall it's prompted quite a significant shift in our media mix. It's definitely not been a quick or an easy journey, but we're all on board now at Coty to move more investment into retail media. Previously, as I'm sure you can imagine, our brand media was heavily influenced by cookies, and actually the opportunity through the likes of BMG or other retailer partners is that we can really tap into the loyalty data to actually make our above-the-line media work harder, which I think is the most exciting part. So we're not talking about bringing in a whole new media channel and it working completely in silo. Actually, we're able to use the low-funnel opportunities through BMG to retarget those customers that we've brought into the funnel through our brand media, more of a kind of browsing level, consideration level, and then drive them all the way through to conversion and purchase. So one, it's the access to the data and to see the impact that our campaigns are having. And then the second part is to actually be able to push customers all the way through, where previously we've only been able to take them through to the consideration stage ourselves.
Amazing. And in assessing that effectiveness of those campaigns, how how are you looking at the metrics? So, like, what's most important to you when you're considering that for Georgia and Brogan again?
Yeah, I think the metrics, what brands are asking for in Brogan, you'll probably be able to give a good example of this, but I actually think Coty is quite far along in the journey of how we look at data. It used to be very much short-term metrics, so things like return on investment, ROAS, which I think are really still important. I think what we're seeing actually are more and more brands starting to look at the sort of longer-term value and the longer-term metrics in conjunction with those short metrics. So things like customer lifetime value, frequency of shop, basket builders, brand recall. We actually did something with Boots, I think it was last year now, with Mesh, so an agency who looked at the data from Boots, and when we advertise above the line, so when brands and Boots actually do it together, the brands were 2 times more likely to be noticed. So actually from a brand recall perspective, using that data and using the Boots like sort of history and the Boots name, it's actually even more valuable for brands to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see that as well. The loyalty and the trust that Boots has means that actually when we're running some of our campaigns through the Boots channel, for example, on Instagram, we are getting that really great engagement as well. So definitely there. I think for us, there's been 2 kind of key benefits. The first one is just the ability to look at multi-touch attribution models. As a brand, we don't have, a D2C website, so actually being able to look at the entire customer journey is fantastic. The second part then is our absolute omni-channel obsession, which is quite new news for us to be tapping into BMG. We've previously always seen it as more of a digital and an online opportunity, and now we see the opportunity to drive full funnel campaigns, omni-channel approach, make sure we're touching customers through the entire journey, and then actually again we can see the impact of in-store sales with our digital campaigns, which is so exciting because it means that from a brand perspective, again, we can be running upper funnel, we can be running digital retargeting through BMG, and then we can actually follow that all the way through to purchase, which is just visibility that we've never had before in terms of how our campaigns are performing.
Great. And then how do you see that role of loyalty data evolving over the next few years, right? And also regarding customers as they get this explosion of loyalty programs, do you think that there's going to be a recoil of no, I don't want to have 20 different cards?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to be really important. I think brands are going to get really used to the data that's available to them and the results that they're seeing. It comes back, and sorry, it's a hard gig going last because this has already been spoken about, but that value exchange it's going to be so important. And actually, I really think that's on the retailer to manage that and police that. So we have to make sure that all the comms that we're using, the communications to those audiences are really valuable. And I think one bad communication actually could put somebody off, and that can really affect the opt-ins. So it's how you can work together to be really sensible and actually protect that data, because ultimately that data is the lifeblood of a retail media network. And I do think it's the responsibility of mainly the retailer, but also the brands to understand the kind of complications that come with that.
That value exchange is so important because we're all becoming a lot more cognizant of the value of our own data. I think there's a lot more in the media about how people are using our data and how us as individuals need to have more control over that data. And so I think the retailers that will do really well and win in this space will be open and transparent to start with about how they use that data and what they're going to do with that data, but also use that data for good. Right, to give more value to the customer, to bring more loyalty in that space, and to do things that they really want to do. If you start serving advertising for things to people that they don't want to see, that's when you're immediately going to get the unsubscribe and the opt-out. And so it's all about doing the right things for the customer at the right time.
I think just to build on that as well, it comes back down to the question that was asked earlier around being creepy versus actually being beneficial to people. And there's a fine balance, isn't there, between those personalised communications versus too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed. And there's also that element of now, I was speaking with someone earlier around, you have all these apps and you know that they're selling your data to some degree, right? And so then if it's an app that was free and now it's costing you something and you say, yeah, but I know you're selling my data, it's that changing dynamic of what does that mean for me as a customer and kind of that value exchange, right? And how that is going to shift over time.
That's totally it.
And generally, kind of for everyone, what advice would you give to retailers or brands looking to start this journey of loyalty?
That's definitely one for you, Steph.
wow, where to start? I think that the biggest thing I would say, and again, I think we will have spoken about it today, is just from a business and an organisational point of view, really lean into this. It can feel probably quite overwhelming if you're starting from zero, especially if you're more in that brand space and not in the retailer space, but see this as an opportunity of growth for the business, and really, you know, from everyone, from finance to marketing to everyone, bring everybody on this journey about the benefits that this is going to bring to you as a business and as an organisation.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Coty brands, majority of them don't have D2C, so our only option is to partner and go on that journey with retailers, which is nice because, you know, it's more of a partnership and we can get those insights and share those insights. As from the brand side, I think the three key pieces of advice for the organisation. One is to bring in the right talent. It is still quite new, and I mean, I've just went through another round of recruitment, and it's very hard to find people who are actually retail media experts. However, I've just brought someone in actually she's not a retail media expert, but she does have marketing experience, she has partnership experience, and she has trade experience. So actually, we can upskill her internally on, you know, what it looks like now and lean into our partners to do that. But actually, she understands the dynamic between brand, one, objectives, two, equity and protecting that, and then actually the sales objectives and pushing a bit more conversion-focused campaigns. We then need to lean on them to upskill the rest of the organisation. Yeah. The second thing for me would be really driving agility from within. It has been quite a slow process for us to, you know, get everybody on board with a completely new way of working, a totally new way of spending our money. But actually, again, if we can, you know, work really closely with the retail media partners that we have, then we can bring in more of those insights to the rest of the business and get everybody on board, which ultimately now goes through the point where we're getting the investment back and we're able to do more things, which is great. But that then leads me on to the third point, which is test and learn. So we are moving with absolute speed at the moment, trying to understand which channels work for for our brands, which retail partners work for our brands. As I'm sure you can imagine, we have 24 brands in the Coty portfolio, so it's a lot. But it also means that we have completely different strategies for every retail partner and for every brand. And I think the thing that will set brands apart is the brands that take a step back and put the time and resource into going through the data. We have access to it now, but actually finding the time to read through that data and understand what the learnings are to be able to then scale up into the future that's what's going to set the brands apart. So I think it's so easy to fall into the trap of just doing test and learn after test and learn, especially when there's so many new innovations coming out. Yeah. You want to trial everything, but actually, you know, focusing on trialing the right budget, the right campaigns, the right content, the right targeting, and then taking that step back and making sure you can scale it up in the business is absolutely key. So yes, going at pace, but also taking a breather after them.
I think just to build as well on the point, specifically from that brand lens, I think a really important thing is to not compare yourselves to other people and retailers, and set your own North Star and set your own ambition. Like, I think it's really easy to look over the fence and say, this person's here and I want to be as big as them, but it comes back down to that point of really understanding your customer and where you see those growth opportunities within your customer base.
If you could come in and just say that's my senior leadership team.
I'm sure it's recorded somewhere. We can take that snippet.
Snip that. But yeah, absolutely. Like, you're on your own journey, and you know, we've got so many other brands as well, so we just have to work out the right strategy. It's new to everybody actually, so yeah. Not right or wrong.
The nice thing is, though, between Coty and Boots is that you're kind of learning together, right? And so that's I think is one of the main points. It's like from a retailer point of view, obviously you've got to be strategic about your loyalty programs. It's such a big central pillar of what you're doing, how you're going to differentiate it. From a brand point of view, you're trying to learn as quickly as possible about how to use them, but you're both going on the same journey. And so, you know, trying to break down these silos and walls that have in the past existed between retailers and brands, that is, you know, negotiating on space. It's totally different in this space. It is a collaborative partnership where, you know, working together can help you learn quicker.
And I think this is where the transparency piece comes in as well, because the more information we can share in terms of what our above-the-line media plans look like, the more we can identify gaps in our plans that can be filled with BMG opportunities to actually get that full funnel impact. So yeah, it's about working closely, but also having that transparency on data both ways.
Yeah, and I think it's working with all the different teams within the different organisations and trying to bring them on the journey. Which
just a few things.
That's
it's always been
team,
fun. I think that the reality is, like, retail media, it sits in silo in a lot of places, but it touches so many different teams teams in so many different ways. And I think as quickly as businesses can realise the value, the more benefit they get from it. So whether it's PR, whether it's finance, whether it's the media teams, it really is like a joint effort to make these real retail media networks work.
Definitely. I think we have a few minutes, so can we take questions from the crowd?
So just coming back to loyalty, like the core part of a scheme, from my perspective over the years, the success of loyalty schemes and the growth has really also come from like that surprise and delight element as a customer. Now customers are more aware of how their data is being used, and that kind of value exchange is a bit more obvious. What do you see the kind of next generation of surprise and delight being? Because you've got to kind of keep your cards a little bit close to your chest, but without it being creepy. And I think that's a hard question to answer, but I'd be interested to know your perspectives on it.
Again, I probably sound a bit like a broken record, but I think it's so important about really listening and doing that market research and understanding that next generation of people. So again, as I'm sure many different retailers are doing, we're constantly doing research to understand kind of how we acquire new customers, especially in that younger audience base as well, about bringing that next generation through and, excuse the pun, being with them for life, so on brand, as we kind of go through that with them. So again, for me, it's all about that kind of really understanding that and understanding what is meaningful to them, to the point of what is that value? Is it personalised offers? Is it instant savings? Is it ad card points? What is it? And that's how we look to evolve that strategy, but get in there now with the research to really understand it, rather than waiting and then going, oh, we really need to do something with this audience now, and we're almost too late to the party with it.
I think that whole thing about being creepy is really interesting, right? Because there's this narrative that says that personalization is creepy, but in some cases it's not. Like, how much do you love Spotify Wrapped, for example? And how much do you love it when Nectar show you that you're the #1 buyer of like potato crisps in this particular store at this particular time? Like, sometimes personalization can be really well done and really interesting. And again, it comes back to how it's done and doing it in the right way that benefits the customer, the retailer, and the brand at the same time. I think that's really, really critical. And then it's not creepy, then it's fun. Everyone's aware that it's happening, and you get, you know, a really exciting kind of wrap of all of the stuff that you've listened to and that your daughter's listened to Taylor Swift a million times in the past year. You know?
Is that you?
That's me.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thanks very much. I know you said you suggested you're on your own journey and pay no attention to anybody else. So I'm going to ask you to pay attention to someone else. Looking outside of retail, and I know this is sort of heresy at a retail conference, but looking outside of retail for a moment, are there any loyalty programs that you look to and you admire and you aspire to?
That's a really good question, that, isn't it? Outside of retail.
I mean, I'll give it a shot if you want. Give you all time to think, and I can take the hit.
Go for it.
I think travel's really interesting. I think there's, if you look at hotels.com with their reward nights, that's really clever because it links kind of business and personal together and encourages spend. Some of the credit card loyalty schemes I think are really interesting in terms of the way that points work. I think the one that I look to the most is airlines, actually, and how British Airways work, how Virgin...
It's basically another bank, right?
Yeah,
Which you found out during COVID when they had to separate them, right?
Yeah.
It's much more valuable on the point side.
These points are really valuable to people, and because, again, it then comes back to personalised experience. You know, if I have this many points, I can fly business.
I would agree with you on BA. I think BA have a fantastic reward scheme and how they do that, and it's that kind of self-treat almost.
It's the VIP experience. You feel like you're a bit special and part of the business. Whereas there's so many loyalty schemes out there now where I feel like the added value is, you know, it's discounts but actually they add that extra special part of your holiday, which is super personal for you as well. So you know you've saved up, you're going on holiday, and then you're getting this extra little cherry on top, which I think is very nice.
What do you guys think of Starbucks loyalty program?
That's a good question.
I quite like the Pret one, I have to say.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I don't know much about Starbucks because I love Costa.
Oh,
But
Controversial, isn't it?
sorry, I just prefer the taste. But the Costa, what I love about the Costa loyalty scheme is it's dead simple. It's like you buy this many Costas and you get a free one. Yeah. And it means that you swipe it every time, even when you go to those rubbish machines at garages, you're still swiping and you're active on it. And they simplified it massively, and I think the simplicity of that's beautiful. The Starbucks one, I think, is quite complicated because you have to buy through the app, top it up. So, and I don't really like the Starbucks taste, so that's my personal.
Not for you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any other. I think the BA one definitely is one that really does stand out for me. I think the only other one that on a personal basis, and I'm not sure if I'm probably going to get my P45 for this, is I actually really like the Nectar prices because they've started doing a personalisation element within that as well. So obviously that's really relevant for me and my family when I'm shopping around the store, which is really good. I think that's really good, but again, do similar things there.
They do some smart stuff.
We're up for one last question.
I think we might have time for both of these. That was really interesting, thank you. And I loved how you mentioned the driving customers to store through loyalty. Have you got any examples of leveraging loyalty in store, though?
Well, I suppose anything with the Advantage card, we do Advantage card like events. So we will essentially select groups of people who will be really relevant for and drive them into store for a specific thing. So whether it is, for example, we did one not too long ago with Dyson. So actually Dyson Airstrait, we looked at who were going to be the sort of people that we thought would purchase a very high value product, and actually invited stylists, and we invited different people there, and that was driving in store just to kind of give them that event. And then we also did one sort of outside the store as well, just to like a really like theatrical, PRable moment for them. So I think in-store eventing is definitely one of them, and then you've also got obviously the price advantages in store, so that's another way that we're able to sort of use the Advantage card to give value in the store.
We've largely focused in this discussion about using the loyalty card data and strengthening the loyalty card data because it's good for retail media. But can you see it happening the other way around, that you'd get higher CPMs or media buyers would come to you to say, I'll spend more if you get this data, and the loyalty scheme doesn't have it. So then the loyalty scheme would then start to run supplemental data, sort of outreach or growth to try and improve the value of the media proposition.
Such an interesting point, and yeah, I think you're right. I think it will go that way. And I think there's an interesting world ahead of us of data alliances in general, where the first-party data that you get from loyalty card schemes in some of the big retailers compares very nicely with some of the first-party data you might get from British Airways or the first-party data that you might get from Experian. And so I think having the data collaboration opportunities that some of these clean rooms are starting to offer, alongside the unique identifiers that allow you to track customers through multiple verticals of their journey, then gives a much broader targeting opportunity, not only by purchasing data, by demographic, but also by lifestyle, interests, browsing behavior, which then starts to look a lot better than the cookie. And so I think once you start to put that data set together, you'll start to find extra CPM value for everybody as part of the equation.
Yeah, hi, Brogan, it's a question for you directly.
There you go.
I knew who you were, just couldn't see it.
Yeah, so my question is, when you've got obviously such a big portfolio and you work with multiple retailers, how do you decide which one to prioritize in terms of their loyalty schemes and which you're going to work with? Or do you just go for sort of a bit of a broad brush approach and work with them all when they offer similar propositions?
Yeah, I mean, well, the easy answer is we look at scale, size, the opportunity, of course. But then I think also there's a piece in terms of the right brands for the right retailers to go after. This is still quite new for Coty as well. And there's a lot of brands and a lot of retailers, which would require a lot of budget, which we do not have. So the reality is that we kind of look at the brands which fit closest to the audience that the retailers built up. Now, As an example of that, at the moment, we're really trying to overdrive Rimmel as a brand within the younger audience. So we see that as an opportunity with the new Battersea store, which has brought in a much younger audience, for us to create some really fun events. I think there's one in a few weeks if anyone wants to join. PR moment. But yeah, we look at what our objectives are for the brand, and then we're looking at the audiences that the retailers have and what their audience data is, and then we're trying to match it up to prioritise. Now, of course, the ambition is that we get there with everybody and every brand in the future, but at the moment, it's more about testing and learning and finding the sweet spot of the retailer audience with the brand, not necessarily the brand's current audience, but where we want to take the brands. I've got a big old matrix on it, so.
Secret document.
Yeah.
And I think we're at time, but thank you everyone for your great insights on the panel today, and everyone for the time. It's been some great conversations, and we'll see you outside shortly.
Thank you.